This week's new topic is the Vectorworks image prop. Image props are used generally to create entourage. Entourage is the term that architects use for things in their rendering that are not the building itself, but are used to make the rendering look more realistic. So if you see an architectural rendering that has trees, people, cars, those sorts of things, that's the entourage that's added to the rendering to improve the rendering, but isn't really part of the design. So you may remember this image from the first week. This was our rendering test. In this particular file, the character is a actual 3D model. So if we, gonna go into wireframe. If we look around, you can see that that is actually a 3D model. And she is considered entourage because she's not really part of the design. She's part of the rendering to make it so that you can see scale. This is a 39 megabyte or 37 megabyte, very large file, and about 30 megabyte of that is just the model of the person. This is the same model, only the person in this version is not 3D. This is just a 2D photograph of the 3D model. Although it's a special 2D photograph because if you notice as I move around, it turns to follow me, or to follow the camera, not to follow me. If we look at this one in wireframe, you can see that it's just this rectangle that is, interestingly, the rectangle itself is not turning, but the image that's on the rectangle is set to automatically follow the camera. This is a 2D image prop, and this file is about a 9 megabyte file, so it's a much smaller file. So let's talk about how to create a 2D image prop. You can use any photograph as long as it has a distinct background. So there's a tool under Model called Create Image Prop. And when you select that tool, it will ask you if you want to import a file. And yes, we would like to import a file. Render test. So that file is the black woman in the gray suit. It's this image, which has a distinct background and the background has none of the colors that are in the image itself. That's important. Often images like this have white backgrounds. A white background here would be bad because she's wearing a white shirt, and the program would not be able to distinguish when it's getting rid of the background between the background and the shirt, so that would be a problem. So that's why this is set to blue. So I'm going to open this, and it will automatically default to 6 feet because it assumes that if you're creating an image prop, you're creating a person for some reason. I'm not sure why it assumes that because often you're not creating a person. But anyway, that's the default. In this case, we are creating a person, so we're going to leave it set to 6 feet, but you can change this to whatever you want. If you're creating a tree, this might be set to 100 feet. You can choose to use a mask or no mask if you want to get rid of the background, which we do. So we want to use a mask, and we'll tell it to create mask. We're going to reuse the image, the color from this same image, and we're going to look for transparent color. So we're going to tell it what color to use as the transparent color. I'll click OK, and I'm going to click here to tell it to look for the blue and use the blue as the transparent color. This works the same way as transparency when you're creating a texture. In fact, that's exactly what we're doing. We're creating a texture with transparency as part of the image prop setup. So then I'll click OK, and then you have a couple of options. I'll show you what I'm going to select them all: crossed planes, constant reflectivity, and create plugin object, and auto rotate. And we're going to say OK, and then it will insert itself into the drawing. So what crossed planes do, which is not actually all that useful for a person, but you can see that it creates two crossed planes. This is useful for things that have a lot of volume, like trees. It's really interesting how this is programmed. If you look, you'll notice that even though the image is on those rectangles, because it's set to auto-rotate towards viewer, the image appears to be independent from the rectangles and rotates towards the viewer, which I think is some interesting programming. I'm going to go ahead and turn cross planes off, but you'll see it does exactly the same thing. It will rotate as I'm moving around. She looks like she's not moving, but I am in fact moving around, and she is rotating towards the camera. If I turn auto rotate off, then you'll see what you would expect to see if this is in fact just a 2D image. So auto rotate towards camera is very useful. The other setting we had was constant reflectivity, which basically turns on glow, so that this image is not affected by the lighting. It's always on. Depending on what you're doing with the image, sometimes you want that set on and sometimes you want that set off. But image props can be very useful. We're going to use them this week to create some foliage and parts of a fountain. But just be aware that image props are here available to be created under Model Create Image Prop.